At a wedding we went to, my spouse danced with her guy best pal the whole evening while overlooking me. When a person inquired if she was wedded, she replied, "Not truly. It doesn't matter when he's dull." They chuckled. I simply observed. The following day, she awoke by herself. So my union concluded last Saturday evening. There was no major argument, no shouting, no dishes getting hurled. It finished with a giggle, her giggle. A phony, unpleasant tiny noise in an elegant hotel banquet hall that revealed everything I required to understand. Let's rewind. I'm Tom. My spouse, well, former spouse now, I suppose, is Olivia. We were wedded for 4 years. On the outside, things likely appeared okay. Decent home, fine vehicles, the entire package. But below, the base was ruined. I've recognized it for roughly a year. I'm a fairly perceptive fellow. I spot details. And what I spotted was Ben. Ben is her male closest companion, her sibling. For the initial few years, I attempted to be the relaxed, confident partner. I convinced myself that their past was merely that. Past. But in the recent year, after we tied the knot, something shifted in her. The feeling of privilege expanded, and her admiration for me appeared to diminish in exact ratio. The warning signs progressed from tiny, waving items far away to enormous, billowing flags directly before me. It was the ongoing messaging. The device tilted away from me whenever he texted. It was how she'd mention him in each discussion, contrasting my decisions to what Ben would have chosen. The instant I realized I needed to begin organizing my departure was around 8 months back. We were arranging a vacation for our milestone. I had invested weeks investigating a serene lodge in the hills, the sort of tranquil retreat I knew we both once adored. When I displayed the images to her, she looked unimpressed. The day after, she approached me with a fresh idea. Ben suggested we head to that new seaside hotel instead. It's meant to be fantastic. It wasn't an idea. It was a choice she had already finalized with him. My arrangements were unimportant. We visited the hotel. I passed 4 days seeing her send him photos of the scenery. That's when I understood I wasn't acting as a relaxed spouse. I was acting as a stand-in, a supplier. The unexciting, dependable framework for the thrilling existence she was experiencing with others. So I ceased being a pushover. I did it silently. I'm not the kind to create large, theatrical displays. That's her domain. I'm a strategist. I began arranging preparations. The initial contact was to an attorney, a keen man my buddy suggested. I had a 90-minute meeting just to grasp my entitlements and obligations. The residence was under my name, purchased and settled prior to meeting her. That was the key element. He guided me on safeguarding my remaining possessions. The following day, I started shifting my funds. I established a fresh group of banking profiles at another institution. I commenced redirecting the majority of my earnings there, retaining just sufficient in our combined profiles to maintain the facade. I was constructing a getaway path, piece by piece. I knew I'd require it. I just didn't know the timing. The wedding last Saturday was the ultimate trigger. It was for her college buddy, a massive, costly celebration. Olivia was thrilled. She adores a gathering, a crowd. She had purchased a fresh gown for the event, one that she offhandedly noted was somewhat expensive and charged to our shared card. She spent the whole night linked to Ben's side, giggling boisterously, creating a show of themselves on the dance area. She essentially disregarded me, and I permitted it. I wasn't present to compete for her focus. I was present to watch, to collect the last bits of information I required. I had a sense the evening would be significant. Around 10, I was positioned near the counter, chatting with the groom's relative. She was with Ben and some others I didn't recognize. I noticed a lady point at Olivia's marriage band and question if she and Ben were wedded, instead of simply denying and indicating her real partner standing 20 feet distant. Olivia performed a spectacle. She chuckled this shrill, artificial chuckle and stated, "Oh, I'm wedded, but not to Ben, sadly." Then she bent in, all secretive, and stated, "Not truly anyway. It doesn't matter when he's dull." The crowd chuckled. A courteous but certainly patronizing chuckle. And that was it. No fury, no massive blast in my heart, just a serene, icy sensation of total assurance. It was the verification I had been anticipating. This wasn't a union. It was a farce, and I was the joke's end. I didn't utter a thing. I just offered her a small gesture from across the space. A gesture that she likely took as me being watchful, but it wasn't. It was a gesture of recognition. A concluding signal accepted, I pivoted, exited that banquet hall without glancing rear, and ascended to our lodging suite. The gathering was finished. My union was finished. It was time to implement the strategy. Update 1. The initial action I took in that lodging suite was remove my marriage band. I placed it on the cabinet and just stared at it for a moment. It felt like discarding a disguise. Then I gathered my suitcase. Each action was composed, intentional. I wasn't reacting on feeling. I was adhering to a process I had been mentally practicing for months. I was a guy carrying out a strategy, nothing further. I departed the lodging, retrieved my vehicle, and drove residence. No tunes, just quietness. The 40-minute journey was the most tranquil I had experienced in ages. The psychological burden of feigning, of enduring the ongoing mild disdain, was ultimately absent. I arrived at the residence around 11:30. My residence. The primary item on my list was to protect the premises. I proceeded directly to the intelligent home panel in the cooking area. I accessed the user configurations and located her account. 2 taps. Erased. Her entry code was eliminated. Her access device was disabled. I proceeded to the storage and manually altered the access code. In about 5 minutes, she was an outsider to my dwelling, physically barred. Next, I severed the funds. I settled at my workstation and accessed our combined banking profile. It was the profile I maintained funded for her regular expenditures, her vehicle installment, her purchases, her meals with companions. The amount was several $1,000s. I moved every cent to my individual profile. Then I accessed my primary credit profile. She possessed an additional card that she utilized as her personal spending profile. I reviewed the latest transactions, the gown for the wedding, a relaxation day with Ben's sibling, a fresh collection of bags for a women's outing she was organizing. I declared her card as missing. The profile was halted immediately. The monetary backing structure was eliminated. Then arrived the difficult portion, her items, all of them. I had a large pile of new flat-packed relocation containers in the storage that I'd acquired for this precise reason. I spent the subsequent 3 hours methodically removing her from my dwelling. I wasn't furious or sorrowful. I experienced an odd feeling of separation, like I was a property supervisor clearing the possessions of an individual who had departed. I emptied her enormous wardrobe, her portion of the washroom counter, her work area. Each garment, each footwear, each container of costly items. I was organized. I secured each container with adhesive and arranged it properly in the storage. The residence began to seem like mine once more. It was silent. It was structured. At 3 a.m., I dispatched a 2-word message to my attorney. Submit it. Then I retired to sleep and rested deeply for the first time in a year. The communications began the next morning. First, a happy, unaware one from the lodging. She assumed I'd departed for employment. An hour later, an irritated, bewildered one. Her card was rejected when she attempted to cover her and Ben's meal service morning meal. An hour following that, sheer alarm. She was on the entryway and her access wasn't functioning. I chose to respond to that one. Tom, what is happening? I'm barred, she yelled. I know, I stated. What do you mean you know? This isn't amusing. Allow me entry. No, I stated, my tone entirely neutral. I overheard what you mentioned last night, Olivia. I overheard you inform everyone your union doesn't matter because I'm dull. So view this as me making your existence a bit more thrilling. You're liberated now. You don't have a dull partner anymore, and you don't have his dull residence either. She began refuting it naturally. It was a jest. I was acting insane. I had misheard. It doesn't matter, I stated. It's completed. All your items are in 42 containers in the storage. A relocation firm is arriving tomorrow to transport them to a storage facility. I covered 3 months. I'll message you the details when it's finished. The banking profile is vacant. The credit card is terminated. The separation documents will be delivered on Monday. We're done. I could hear Ben in the distance, informing her I was pretending, informing her I was just acting theatrical. He had transported her home, her hero, in gleaming protection. You can't do this. She sobbed. I already did, I stated, have a pleasant existence. I ended the call and restricted both their contacts. Phase 1 was finished. Update 2. Of course, they didn't simply acknowledge it. Individuals like Olivia and Ben never encounter repercussions silently. They must craft a tale where they are the sufferers. For a few hours, they just stayed. My surveillance device recorded them attempting the entrances, Ben posing and attempting to appear strong for the device. It was pitiful. He even attempted to force the main entrance once before evidently understanding it was sturdy timber and he wasn't in a film. The next day, when the relocators arrived, they positioned across the road in Ben's vehicle and observed the entire process. I made an effort to exit to retrieve the correspondence. then spent roughly 20 minutes tending my front landscape area, just disregarding them entirely. My complete absence of response appeared to anger them more than anything else. I could sense their gaze on me, but I declined to provide them the pleasure of a clash. With the straightforward method failing, they shifted to an effort of data conflict. This was Olivia's field of skill. Within a day, the murmurs commenced. I was the antagonist, the envious, dominating partner who couldn't manage her possessing a male companion. The tale they invented was that I'd experienced a collapse at the wedding, fantasized things, and erupted into a fierce anger, expelling her from her dwelling. It was a skillfully created tale, and some individuals accepted it. The first immediate strike came from Olivia's mom. She left me a lengthy, emotional recording about how let down she was in me, how Olivia was devastated, and how I needed to act manly and repair the disorder I had caused. I preserved the recording but didn't respond. Then I received messages from some of Olivia's relatives, furious, blaming communications. I was a beast. I was harmful. They were going to ensure everyone knew the facts. They were attempting to separate me. They didn't realize I had already separated them. I knew I required evidence. Solid evidence. A wedding is a communal occasion, and in 2025, everything is recorded. I didn't want to handle the formal recorder. I considered who would possess the most recordings. The bride's younger relative, a young woman named Maya. She had been attached to her device all evening, recording everything for her social platform. I located her digitally and sent her a note. I informed her I was assembling a small remembrance collection for the bride and groom and that I'd appreciate obtaining her recordings from the event. She was glad to assist. She provided me a connection to a directory with all her videos. I spent an hour examining them, and then I discovered it. A recording of some individuals on the dance area, but in the background, ideally positioned and ideally hearable, was the discussion at the counter. The lady posing the inquiry. Olivia's sharp-toned, artificial chuckle, and her voice perfectly distinct saying, "Not truly anyway. It doesn't matter when he's dull. It was my ultimate weapon." I edited the recording. Just that 10-second segment. I wasn't going to share it for the public to view. That wasn't the strategy. The strategy was precise. I dispatched a collective message. The receivers were a very particular group of individuals. The bride and groom, Olivia's guardians, her sibling, and Ben's ongoing partner, Emily. I had her contact from a meal gathering. The message was brief. "I know you've all been hearing many tales. I just want the reality to be evident. This is a segment from the wedding on Saturday. The sound is what's crucial. This is why my union is over." I included the recording and pressed dispatch. Then I set my device on mute and went for an extended stroll. Final update. It's been 6 months. The separation is concluded. My attorney said it was one of the fastest he'd ever witnessed. A recording of your spouse openly rejecting your union tends to eliminate all her negotiating strength. The recording didn't just conclude my union. It concluded their entire realm. The bride and groom were enraged with Olivia for generating such a poisonous conflict at their wedding and severed her completely. They even dispatched me a distinct regret, which was an elegant action. Her guardians were the true revelation. They are fixated on their communal appearance, and the recording of their offspring acting so rudely was the supreme embarrassment. The tale I learned was that they challenged her with the recording, and when she couldn't refute it, they entirely retracted their backing, both sentimental and monetary. The attorney she had employed with their funds was quickly dismissed. She was instructed to obtain employment and rely on herself for the first time in her existence. Ben received the harshest. His partner, Emily, was ablaze. She didn't just end it with him. She went communal. She shared the recording segment on her own digital platforms, labeling both of them. She composed a lengthy entry about the years of deceptions and disdain. She destroyed them. The tale spread rapidly in our communal group. Their defamation effort against me was immediately overlooked, substituted by a communal humiliation of them. I also learned from a companion that Emily's dad, who's a notable local entrepreneur, made a few contacts. Ben's marketing profession, which depended greatly on standing and connections, is now ruined. Olivia's existence, from what I've assembled, has totally collapsed. She has no funds, her guardians are scarcely communicating with her, and her companions have dispersed. Ben, now a communal reject, wants no involvement with her. She had to secure a position as a server to maintain herself. She's residing in a tiny unit with 3 housemates. The thrilling existence she believed she deserved is absent. I disposed of the residence. I desired a new beginning, I acquired a smaller location, a unit in the city center with an excellent vista. It's my area, it's silent. But the greatest retaliation wasn't expelling her. It was merely displaying people the reality. She and Ben constructed their whole connection on a base of deceptions and disdain. All I did was present a reflection. They couldn't endure the image. She labeled me dull. Perhaps I am. But my existence is steady. It's truthful. It's tranquil. Her existence, the one she selected, is a disordered chaos. She awoke by herself in that lodging suite, but the reality is she'd been solitary in our union for a long time. I just ultimately formalized it.